Greetings, I'm Rob Chapman, and what you just witnessed was some kind of blues. Now blues comes in many guises and forms. Deactivate BCAM. Basically, blues is the sound of African music moved through America into England, back into America, and then into our ears from the stratosphere. And it's beautiful. And what it is a kind of really strange and mysterious thing. It's a 5-note scale which speaks volumes irrespective of its diminutive note stature. And it breaks lots of rules. For example, sometimes you play a minor scale over a major chord, but it's all about the way you play it. So why is blues useful for you to learn? Well, it's useful because it's really in everything, and the techniques contained within blues will fuel your metal or 80s shred or progressive gent or whatever, with lots of ideas and phrases. And to my knowledge, there is no more of a direct scale to emit emotion at someone hourly than pentatonic. It's really direct and to the point. Let me show you one. Here is pentatonic position number 1. And this is the first scale I learned and anybody should ever learn on an electric guitar. And I'm going to teach it to you in the key of A. Here are some tuning notes. So here's the scale for you. Now, there are a few things to discuss there. The first thing is that I used a kind of fingering or a finger pattern that would facilitate the use of bends. If you were going to run this scale, for example, for more legato, more of a fluid style of play, that kind of vibe, you would play it very differently. Here's how you would play it for that. So you see I'm using my little finger, I'm keeping myself in the ergonomic, I call it the crane hand position, rather than thumb over, where you would play like this. So when I'm playing blues, more often than not my thumb is over. But when I'm playing rock, I tend to keep my thumb on the back of the guitar and I bring it over when I want to do a bend or some vibrato. So the position of the thumb is quite important in scales because it gives you a different kind of feel. It's obviously different playing like this as it is to playing like this. And it's important to learn to flow between the two different kinds of hand position. So the other thing to discuss is that I added a note into the pentatonic scale to make it more practical for blues playing. I added what we call the flat 5, or the tritone if you live in America. So here is the pentatonic scale, and then I'll show you the difference. So it's just 5 notes repeated over 2 octaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this is the octave. And the note I added in was this one, which is the flatted 5th. Now that's an interval, and intervals are something that I'll teach you later on. They're theory, and they're the most important piece of theory to learn. So here's the flat 5. So here it is in the scale. It gives you a bluesy vibe. Here's the pentatonic. scale number 1, what are you going to do with it? Here's the thing to do. Practice playing music in it. Don't just play the scale. That won't give you anything. If you just play the scale, all you're going to get is a scale. What you really want to do, once you can just play through it, is drone a root note, for example an E, and then play little phrases, little notes, little bends, and see how it sounds with that note. So here's an E note, so I'll play it in E, and I'll drone the note. That's how I work things out on my own. It's a more musical way of practicing. If you just run the scale, you're just going to learn the scale. What you really want to learn, looking at it from a theory perspective, are the notes that sound good when they're bent and where to bend them to over a particular chord. So for example, I know that if I'm playing this E, and I'm playing in the key of E minor, if I bend this note up a tone, I'm going to reach the same root note. And it sounds nice, and it's a nice sound, so it's nice. Boost. So, where to bend to is critical to know, because you could bend to the wrong place. So here's a real quick Chappers rule of thumb about where to bend to. Really simply, you can bend to the next scale note or the one above that. So if I'm playing around here in the key of E, then if I'm playing this note, the next scale note is this, so I can bend to it. If I bent up a semitone, that note isn't technically in the scale and therefore would be kind of wrong. It's not wrong, nothing is wrong, but it's not in the scale. If I'm taking this note here, the next scale note is this, so I should bend it to that note. Now again, you could bend it a semitone, which is technically wrong, but nothing is wrong in music, okay? So you can practice that. Now you might find that difficult to begin with, because if you're a beginner you won't have the calluses on your fingers required, or maybe the strength, the correct technique and leverage to perform a bend like that. So please don't hurt yourselves. If you're a beginner, I recommend that you use 9 gauge strings, or maybe even 8 gauge strings if you're a little kid. Thicker strings do not equal better tone. That's a common misheld belief from my experience, and I'm standing by it, because Jimi Hendrix, Billy Gibbons, Yngwie Malmsteen, they use 8s, sometimes 7s, which if you're a complete beginner, they're really, really, really thin and actually very difficult to play because they're so thin. Tone is in the whole collection of things you're using. Tone is the sound that you enjoy. It is utterly subjective. No one has good tone or bad tone. I mean, some people have bad tone, but then again, that's me judging them on their tone. So for example, my tone, some people might absolutely hate my tone. I could not give a shit. It's the tone I love the best. So tone just means, it's a fancy word for sound. Do you like his sound? Yes or no? Do you like the sound of someone's voice? Yes or no? Do you like pizza or Chinese? I like both. It's a subjective artistic thing. So yeah, there you go. Lighter strings are easier to bend, so if you're a complete beginner you might find that using soft, light strings helps you to learn your technique quicker. Eventually settling probably on 10s is a good idea for playing regular tuned guitar, because they'll settle to pitch if you hit them, and they won't break so frequently when you're learning to use a plectrum. If you hit the strings really hard or the wrong angle, you might find that the strings occasionally snap. If they do snap, don't hit the strings too hard. Maybe check out the guitar and see if the nut or the bridge is sharp, because sometimes that can be a contributing factor to string breakage, but more often than not, and especially if you're breaking them down here, it's because you're striking the string too hard with too much plectrum or the wrong angle. So, that's a bit about that. Let's move on to